We all laugh at Phoebe's quirks, but there is a profound psychological depth to her character that many of us miss. Let's explore the philosophy of Phoebe Buffay. Phoebe Buffay was always written as the weird one, the punchline friend, the one who said bizarre things while everyone else had real problems. But if you actually watch her, something else is happening. While Ross is spiraling over a sandwich, and Monica's trying to control the weather at her wedding, and Rachel's defining herself by her career trajectory, Phoebe's just kind of okay. Not okay in the way people perform wellness on Instagram. Okay in a way that's unsettling if you think about it too long. Because her childhood was objectively the worst of anyone in that apartment. And somehow she's the most stable person in the room. That's not random. That's philosophy. Not the kind you'd find in a textbook. The kind you build when life doesn't give you the luxury of falling apart. Here's the thing we don't really talk about. Most of our suffering isn't the actual bad thing. It's the part where we argue with reality about whether the bad thing should have happened. Phoebe never does that. Her mom died by suicide. She lived on the street. Her stepfather went to prison. She mugged people, including Ross, which is objectively funny but also objectively traumatic. And the way she talks about all of this, casually, like you'd mention traffic. There's a moment where someone's complaining about something minor and she just goes, "Oh, I lived in a car. I turned out fine." No performance, no bid for sympathy, just a fact. That's what psychologists call radical acceptance. It's a core principle in dialectical behavior therapy, and it basically means this. You stop fighting with reality, not because reality is good, not because you approve, but because resisting what's already true just creates a second layer of pain on top of the first. Phoebe discovered this without a therapist, because when your childhood is that unstable, you can't afford to spend energy wishing it had been different. You'd never survive. So she accepted it. All of it. The homelessness, the abandonment, the moral complexity of what she had to do to get by. And that acceptance didn't make her cold. It made her free. Most of us are taught that trauma makes you bitter or broken. Phoebe's proof that it can also make you wise. That you can integrate the worst parts of your story without letting them write the ending. Which sounds simple until you realize how much energy most of us spend trying to outrun our past. Phoebe just let it sit in the room, and it lost its power. There's this thing Phoebe does that looks like she doesn't care, but it's actually the opposite. She gives away $1,000 to Joey without hesitation. She hands over her grandmother's fur coat. She's content being a street musician while Chandler's climbing a corporate ladder and Rachel's obsessing over Ralph Lauren. Buddhism calls this non-attachment. The idea that suffering comes from grasping, clutching too tightly to money, status, relationships, outcomes. Phoebe doesn't grasp. But here's what makes her different from the stereotype of the detached Zen master. She cares deeply. She carries her brother's triplets. She fights for her ethical beliefs, even when it's inconvenient. She mourns. She loves hard. The difference is, she's not attached to things staying the same. She knows everything's temporary because she's already lost everything once. So when she has something, she holds it lightly. And that makes her more present, not less. Most of her friends define themselves by what they have or what they're chasing. Phoebe defines herself by how she moves through the world. That's why career setbacks don't shatter her. Breakups don't destroy her. She's not building her identity on things that can be taken away. It's like she figured out that if you never expect the universe to owe you stability, you can be devastated when it doesn't deliver. Which is a depressing thought until you realize it also means you can't be controlled by the fear of loss. And in a world that runs on making you afraid you'll lose everything if you don't perform correctly, that's a superpower. She's the only one in that friend group who's actually free, because she's already survived the worst thing. Everything else is borrowed time, and she knows it. If this is starting to feel a little too close, that's not an accident. Most of us weren't taught that peace is something you can have before everything's fixed. Phoebe's just living proof that it works the other way around. There's a version of Phoebe that could have existed where all that childhood trauma turned her into Ursula. Cold, self-interested, cruel, but it didn't. And that wasn't luck. Psychologists have this concept called post-traumatic growth. It's the idea that some people don't just survive terrible things, they use them as raw material to build something new. Empathy, resilience, a completely original way of seeing the world. Phoebe did that. Her weirdness isn't random. It's protective. Her humor isn't deflection. It's alchemy. She took pain and turned it into songs about smelly cats and cups of coffee that are too mainstream. And the thing about her music? It's absurd, yes, but it's also how she processes grief. Smelly Cat is about an outcast no one wants to be near. That's not subtle. That's her childhood, transformed into something she can share without falling apart. She's the most emotionally available person in the group because she's already been to the bottom. She knows what real suffering looks like. So when her friends are spiraling over a breakup or a job, she doesn't dismiss it, but she also doesn't lose perspective. She's the one who can hold space for someone else's pain without getting swallowed by it. That's the trade-off trauma sometimes offers. You don't get a normal childhood, but if you survive it, you get a kind of clarity other people don't have. You stop sweating the small stuff because you know what the big stuff actually is. Phoebe could have let her past make her bitter. Instead, she let it make her kind. That's not passivity. That's a choice she makes every single day, to be different than the world that raised her. And honestly, that's one of the most radical things you can do. Phoebe has beliefs that make her deeply inconvenient. She's aggressively vegetarian in a group that loves meatball sub jokes. She refuses to go to a bank because of their corporate practices. She won't wear fur. She'll call out her friends when they're being selfish, even when it kills the vibe. And the thing is, she's not doing it for the aesthetic. There's no Instagram post, no moral superiority performance. She just has a code, and she follows it, even when it's awkward. That's because Phoebe built her ethics from scratch. She didn't grow up with stable role models teaching her right from wrong through family dinners and private school values. She had to figure it out herself, on the street, in survival mode. So her morality isn't about fitting in. It's about what she decided mattered when no one was watching. That makes her the most authentic person in the group, because her values aren't borrowed from a guidebook or a trend. They're hers. And when the group gets too shallow, too self-obsessed, too caught up in conventional drama, Phoebe's the one who pulls them back. Not by lecturing, just by existing as a reminder that there are other ways to live, that you can care about things that don't advance your career or make you look good. In a world where everyone's performing their values for an audience, Phoebe's just living hers, quietly, stubbornly, without needing anyone to applaud. Which, if you think about it, is the only kind of authenticity that actually means anything. Here's the thing about Phoebe that might be easy to miss. Her joy is work. Not in the exhausting way, in the intentional way. She chooses it, over and over, in the face of a childhood that could have crushed her. When you've been abandoned and homeless and broke, joy isn't your default setting. It's something you have to build. And Phoebe built it out of music and humor and weird wedding ceremonies in the street during a snowstorm. That's not obliviousness. That's resistance. There's this idea in social theory that joy, especially for people who've been through hell, is a form of defiance. It's saying, you didn't break me. I'm still here, and I'm still going to sing about a cat. Phoebe's eccentricity isn't a character quirk for laughs. It's armor. It's how she makes space for herself in a world that tried to erase her. Every weird song, every strange belief, every moment where she chooses lightness over bitterness. That's her refusing to let her trauma have the last word. And the wildest part, it works. She ends the series married to the love of her life, surrounded by friends who adore her, still playing guitar in Central Perk, still herself. Not because she fixed everything, because she stopped waiting for everything to be fixed before she let herself be happy. In a culture that equates seriousness with importance, Phoebe's whole life is a reminder that playfulness isn't frivolous. It's survival. It's how you stay human when the world's trying to make you hard. Her joy isn't naive. It's the hardest thing she's ever done, and she does it every day. Here's why Phoebe's philosophy feels almost revolutionary today. We live in the age of optimization, biohacking, productivity, self-improvement. The idea that if you just try hard enough, journal enough, meditate enough, you'll finally fix yourself into someone who doesn't hurt. Phoebe never tries to fix herself. She just is. She's not hustling for worthiness. She's not trying to outrun her past or prove she's healed. She's integrated her mess into her identity and moved on. And in a world where everyone's exhausted from performing growth and wellness and success, That's almost obscene, because it suggests that maybe peace isn't on the other side of achievement. Maybe it's just in the choice to stop fighting with who you already are. We're so used to the narrative that trauma makes you broken, and then you do the work, and then you're whole. Phoebe skips that. She was never broken. She was just different, and she never apologized for it. That's what makes her uncomfortable to watch sometimes. She's proof that you don't need to be fixed. You just need to stop agreeing with the voices that say you're not enough. Which is a pretty inconvenient message when half the economy runs on making you feel like you need one more course, one more app, one more reinvention before you're allowed to be okay. Phoebe's answer to all of that? You're already okay. You've always been okay, even when it didn't look like it. The secret philosophy of Phoebe Buffay isn't complicated. Stop arguing with what's already happened. Hold things lightly. Let your pain make you kinder, not colder. Build your own moral code and live it, even when it's inconvenient. Choose joy, not because everything's fine, but because you refuse to give despair the last word. She's not a perfect character. She's selfish sometimes. She lies. She's inconsistent in ways that frustrated the writers, probably. But she figured out something most people spend their whole lives searching for, that inner peace isn't a destination. It's not something you earn after you've fixed everything else. It's just a moment you stop resisting reality and start living in it. Phoebe never needed the perfect life to be at peace. She just needed to stop waiting for one. And maybe that's the thing. Maybe the smelly cat was never about the cat. Maybe it was always about learning to love the parts of yourself that don't fit. The parts that smell weird. The parts that no one else wants to be near. Because once you accept those parts, they stop controlling you, and you finally get to be free. Anyway, that's Phoebe. Still playing guitar. Still strange. Still the most peaceful person in the room.